So, angels and other stuff. First, backing up a bit. In Bible times, angels sometimes protected humans from harm and or bad decisions. For example, God sent angels to Sodom to urge Lot and his family to leave before the city was destroyed. God told the Israelites in the wilderness, "See, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared." God sent an angel to stand in Balaam's way to prevent him from cursing the Israelites. God sent an angel to rescue Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the fiery furnace. Daniel told King Darius, "My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me." And angels ministered to Jesus in the wilderness and in the Garden of Gethsemane. And the Bible suggests that angels continue to do so now. In Psalms 91, verse 11, "For he will give his angels charge concerning you, to guard you in all your ways." Luke 4, verse 10, "For it is written, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you carefully." Psalm 34, verse 7, "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them." Matthew 18:10, "See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I say to you that their angels in heaven continually see the face of my Father who is in heaven." Hebrews 1 verse 14, "Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation?" However, angels have also been used to bring about judgment, and will do so again in the last days. Psalm 78 verse 49 to 51, regarding Israel's exodus from Egypt, God sent his burning anger upon the Egyptians, fury and indignation and trouble, a band of destroying angels. He leveled a path for his anger. He did not spare their souls from death, but turned their lives over to the plague and struck all the firstborn in Egypt, the first and best of their vigor in the tents of Ham. 2 Kings 19 verse 35, regarding the destruction of the Assyrian army that had laid siege to Jerusalem. That night the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. Matthew 13:41, regarding the last days, the Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. Now let's consider how angels and others are sometimes referred to as Satan. In Numbers 22, there's a story about an angel who was sent by God to stop Balaam from cursing the Israelites. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the Moabite officials. But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, it turned off the road into a field. Balaam beat it to get back on the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path through the vineyards, with walls on both sides. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it pressed close to the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it. So he beat the donkey again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn, either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam, and he was angry and beat it with his staff. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey, "You have made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." The donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden to this day? Have I been in the habit of doing this to you?" "No," he said. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn. So he bowed low and fell face down. The angel of the Lord asked him, "Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times? I have come here to oppose you, because your path is a reckless one before me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If it had not turned away, I would certainly have killed you by now, but I would have spared it." Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned. I did not realize you were standing in the road to oppose me. Now, if you are displeased, I will go back." Let's look closer at these 2 verses where I highlighted to oppose. Verse 22, "But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him." And in verse 32, "I have come here to oppose you because your path is reckless one before me." The Hebrew actually says, as a Satan. Satan is a transliterated word like taco or taco that is lifted from the original language and carried over into another one. In this case, English. Satan means adversary. That's all. Similarly, Jesus called Peter a Satan or adversary. When Peter opposed the idea that Jesus was going to die, Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me and do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." There's even a time when God is referred to as a Satan. There are 2 parallel passages regarding a census taken by King David. 1 Chronicles 21 verse 1. "Then Satan stood up against Israel and incited David to count Israel." However, the same story is told in 2 Samuel 24 verse 1. "Now the anger of the Lord burned against Israel again, and he, God, incited David against them to say, 'Go, count Israel and Judah.'" The backstory is that the census was taken to number the people and have them pay their tithes. But God was angry at the Israelites because they weren't paying what they should. Therefore, God stood as a Satan, that is, an adversary to the wayward Israelites. Likewise, there are other passages that use the Hebrew word Satan to refer to other acting as enemies. 1 Samuel 29 verse 4, "But the commanders of the Philistines were angry with David, and the commanders of the Philistines said to him, 'Make the man go back, so that he will return to his place where you have assigned him, and do not let him go down so to battle with us, or in the battle he may become an adversary.'" So in Hebrew that is Satan to us. In 2 Samuel 19:22, David then said, "What is there between you and me, you son of Zeruiah, that you should be an adversary against Satan to me today?" 1 Kings 5 verse 4, "But now the Lord God, my God, has secured me rest on every side. There is neither adversary nor misfortune." 1 Kings 11 verse 14 and 23, "Then the Lord raised up an adversary against Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the royal line of Edom. God also raised up another adversary against him, Rezon the son of Eliada, who had fled from his master Hadadezer, king of Zobah." And what about the devil, you say? The Greek word for devil is diabolos, meaning false accuser, slanderer. There are several examples in the New Testament of people being called a devil, but the translators chose not to use the devil because they understood the word to refer to a supernatural power, Satan. But Satan and diabolos are not the same. God and his angels can be Satans. They can be adversaries, but they cannot be a diabolos, which is a slanderer or false accusers. John 6 verse 70, Jesus said to Judas Iscariot, Jesus answered them, "Did I myself not choose you, the 12, and yet one of you is a devil?" So the Greek word there is diabolos. 1 Timothy 3:11. Women must likewise be dignified, not malicious gossips, but temperate, faithful in all things. 2 Timothy 3 verses 1 to 5. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, having nothing to do with such people. Have nothing to do. Titus 2 verse 3. Likewise, teach the older women to be reverent in the way they live, not to be slanderers or addicted to much wine, but to teach what is good. And finally, what about hell? There are 65 uses of the Hebrew word Sheol in the Old Testament. Sometimes the translator chose to transliterate the word, remember taco, and sometimes they chose to render the word as hell in English. But the Hebrew word just means grave. For example, Genesis 42 verse 38, but Jacob said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If harm should befall him on the journey you are taking, then you will bring my gray hair down to Sheol in sorrow. But Hebrews 11 verse 39 to 40 tells us, and all these, having gained approval through their faith, did not receive what was promised, because God had provided something better for us, so that apart from us they would not be made perfect. Therefore, Jacob, among others, is dead in the grave, awaiting his resurrection at Christ's return. He is not in a place of fiery torment. Jonah 2 verse 1 to 2. Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the stomach of the fish, and he said, I called out of my distress to the Lord, and he answered me. I cried for help from the depth of Sheol. You heard my voice. Jonah was facing death in the belly of a large fish. He was not in a place of eternal fiery torment. In the New Testament, the word for hell is most frequently the Greek word Gehenna. Admittedly, its usage seems to prove it to be a place of eternal fire, which is true. But Gehenna is synonymous with Jerusalem's valley of Hinnom, another transliterated Hebrew word. It did indeed have an unquenchable fire, because it was Jerusalem's garbage pit outside the city walls. In other words, the fire burned continuously, but whatever was thrown into the pit was burnt up and didn't continue to exist thereafter. For example, Matthew 5 verse 22. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court, and whoever says to his brother, you good for nothing, shall be guilty before the Supreme Court, and whoever says, you fool, shall be guilty enough to go into the fiery hell, or the Hebrew word for that word is Gehenna. In other words, being thrown into Gehenna represents total destruction without hope of resurrection. So why do some people believe so strongly in a place of eternal torment? There's probably at least two reasons. It's likely that there's a carryover from pagan beliefs in a place of eternal torment. Remember Tantalus, for example. Tantalus was a Greek mythological figure, most famous for his eternal punishment in Tartarus. He was made to stand in a pool of water beneath a fruit tree with low branches, with the fruit ever eluding his grasp, and the water always receding before he could take a drink. Or Sisyphus. According to the Greek myth, Sisyphus was condemned to roll a rock up the top of a mountain, only to have the rock roll back down to the bottom every time he reached the top. Another reason why people believe in a place of eternal torment, there's an unforgiving aspect to having been wronged that is satisfied by the idea that the offender will endure eternal punishment. And there's probably one other reason why people believe in a place of eternal torment. It's hard for some people to embrace the idea that when we die, our bodies just go into the grave, awaiting a resurrection at Christ's return. People would prefer to believe in an immortal soul that goes to heaven immediately when a person dies. But then, what happens to those people who haven't lived a life worthy of heaven going? Their immortal souls have to go somewhere. I personally prefer the idea that God is a merciful and doesn't delight in anyone's torment.